back to Legal Matters with the American Law Firm and WIFR. I'm Mike Garrigan with 23 News. Our guest is attorney John Hanson with the American Law Firm. As I mentioned earlier, tonight Legal Matters is a half-hour informational and news call-in show devoted to a variety of legal topics of interest to State Line viewers. We have attorneys standing by right now to take your call at the number on your screen. They'll provide you with free information regarding your issue, so call now and throughout the next hour. Our opening statement concerns a situation that affects people wanting to get back on the roads. License reinstatement. We'll discuss what steps you need to take in order to get your driving privileges restored. Then for our entrepreneurs out there in the state line, we'll discuss what steps you need to take in order to start a new business. Before we get started tonight, however, I'd like to remind our viewers of the multiple practice areas that the American Law Firm concentrates in. The American Law Firm is a general practice law firm that concentrates in divorce and family law cases, bankruptcy matters, personal injury claims, criminal traffic and DUI issues, wills, trusts, and probate matters, and real estate and business transactions. So please feel free to call tonight. You can discuss any of these practice areas with the attorneys standing by. But first, John, let's learn a little bit more for people who are watching for the first time. Tell us a little bit more about American Law Firm.
Well, sure. We are a law firm based in Rockford, and we're located near Mulford and State intersection. And like you mentioned, we are a general practice law firm, which means we have several attorneys that work in several different areas of law. And one thing I like to mention is there's a reason why we're called the American Law Firm, kind of a different name. And the reason is because we believe in the American values of honest, hard work, respect for individuals, no matter their background, no matter their problems. And we believe in this country and this country's philosophy of democracy, hard work, and freedom. And so we incorporate that with our law firm name. And we also, like our country was founded on a Bill of Rights, as we say to law firm, we also have a client's Bill of Rights, which affords them individual attention on their case, prompt responses to their questions, and things like that. That's what each client gets at our law firm, and that's, I think, what every client should demand of a law firm. And like you said, we have attorneys standing by right now during the show that can answer people's phone calls and questions, and not just about on this area of law, but any area of law that we practice. So we invite people to call. It's going to be busy, but keep trying to call through, and you can call until 7:30 at night, and we'll still answer.
All right, sounds good. And unlike visits to the doctor, which is often the case, a lot of people have never dealt with a lawyer before. So for those that haven't, what can clients expect when they visit American Law Firm?
Well, yeah, it can be stressful to visit a law firm, I know. And you know, pursuant to that client's Bill of Rights that we have, we offer a few things to help people out. One of those is free consultations in our office in any area of law that we practice. A lot of times people are real nervous and anxiety-ridden, and so a free consultation takes some of the anxiety out of it, and we'll meet with them and talk about their issues. We also offer simple flat fees for our work, so clients can kind of know what it costs up front to do a project. And for those in a financial bind, we'll offer payment plans to help them out too.
Ease the stress along, the financial stress that sometimes comes along with it.
Right.
Well, now one of the most commonly asked about topics out there currently is driver's license reinstatement. So John, how does it work? How does it generally work, license reinstatement?
Well, you know, we're talking about, you know, someone getting their driving privileges restored. And usually that means they've either had a license suspended or a license revoked. And so there's a Secretary of State process and a legal process to get those privileges back. It's a complex process too, and it can involve hearings in front of a judge, and it can involve a prosecutor, so it's kind of like a trial.
A lot of terminologies in law.
Yeah.
Well, let's get through some of the confusion here. So what's the difference between a driver's license, mine being suspended or being revoked?
Sure. You know, a license suspension means that there's a loss of driving privileges for a finite period of time, not forever, just finite. After a suspension is finished, the reinstatement process can be done with paying a fee to the Secretary of State's office. And typically that's it. You don't need a formal or informal hearing if you've gone past the suspension period. But when a license is revoked, that means you've lost privileges for a indefinite period of time, forever basically. And to restore those privileges, to get back on the roads, you have to have a formal or informal hearing in order to reach that goal. So it's the most serious offenses that result in license revocation. And some examples are convictions on a DUI, fleeing or eluding a police officer, and any felony involving a motor vehicle will cause a license to be revoked. And some people who see us aren't sure whether they're suspended or revoked or why.
Right.
So a lot of times our work is just investigating to see what happened in the past and trying to give them some answers.
Now, you
on
were
that.
talking about driver's license reinstatement, informal and formal hearings. Can you
Right.
kind of tell the difference between the two?
Yeah, an informal hearing is conducted at a local Secretary of State office, and it's conducted by a hearing officer who reviews the petitioner's file and then makes a ruling on that. A formal hearing is more complicated. It's conducted by an administrative judge, and a prosecutor from the state is also present at those hearings. They're conducted kind of like a trial, meaning you have motions, you'll have witnesses subpoenaed, and questions can be posed to the petitioner who's applying for the license. And you have to actually go to Chicago or Joliet. That's the closest place to go to the formal hearings when you're in Rockford.
Okay, some distance there.
Yeah.
A lot of viewers may have dealt on their own with the Secretary of State offices in the past, often to get their registration renewed or to change a name on a title, for example. Does a person, John, need to hire a lawyer to go with them to these reinstatement hearings?
Well, the rules and the processes of these hearings can be very complex, like all things driving related in Illinois. And the actual hearing can be conducted like a court proceeding, like I mentioned before. The rules of the proceeding are technical, and the failure to comply with some of those technical rules results in denial of the reinstatement for a lot of folks who tried on their own. Once you're under oath at these hearings, you're subject to cross-examination by an attorney for the Secretary of State. And a lot of people can break under the pressure and kind of forget what they're supposed to say. You can even be further questioned by the administrative judge or the hearing officer in some cases. And reinstatement may be denied if your testimony doesn't really satisfy the hearing officer, or it sounds kind of inconsistent with what's in your file, like the police reports. And so we meet with our clients in our office and we instruct them as to specific documents they need to get obtained, and we make sure they understand what those documents are. And we want those documents to be credible and current in the Secretary of State's eyes. That's kind of the key phrase, credible and current. And being prepared for these hearings is a key to success and not being denied. We go over and over the administrative process in our office so that the client knows what to expect when the time comes for their testimony at the hearing. We can even request reports and evidence from the Secretary of State's office, and we can help clients remember what happened in the past, sometimes 10 years ago, to give their answers a lot more credibility. This has greatly enhanced our success rate for getting these driving privileges restored.
Okay, and we do hear a lot about restricted driving permits. What exactly is that?
Well, restricted driving permit, it's called RDP in a lot of circles. And what it is, it's a limited period of time you can drive. And it allows you to drive for certain purposes, which are educational related stuff, going to school, employment related trips, going to work, and then medical trips, going to the doctor. Once a person gets an RDP at a hearing, they have it for a year. And if you drive for 75% of that time, basically 9 months, you can actually go in early and get a full reinstatement. One thing to remember, if you have an RDP and you finish your year's term, you don't automatically get reinstated. You actually have to go back and have a formal hearing to get your reinstatement done.
And a reminder, there are lawyers standing by from American Law Firm. If you have any questions with them, call the number on your screen. We will have more when we come back with John Hanson.
Our country was founded on a Bill of Rights, which set a bold standard for the protection of individual rights, a standard set for the rest of the world to follow. At the American Law Firm, you also have a Bill of Rights as a client. By offering free consultations, simple flat fees, and payment plans to our clients, we deliver effective legal solutions to your problems and goals. Call the American Law Firm at 815-394-1776 to learn more about how we represent our clients and how we can protect you.
It's Mike Garrigan and attorney John Hanson from the American Law Firm, continuing to talk legal matters that affect many state liners. And if you want to talk to an attorney right now, live for free, just call the number on your screen. An attorney from the American Law Firm will be on the other end to answer your call. Now, another area of law that the law firm practices is business formation, forming corporations and other types of businesses for people. And a very common question for many is, what type of corporation is the right one for my new business? With all the choices out there, how does someone go about figuring that out, John?
Well, sure. It's a question that most business owners even ask pretty much up front. And what we're talking about is forming either a sole proprietorship, generally, a partnership, a corporation, or an LLC. Those are the most common choices for business owners. We'll often advise people to form a corporation or an LLC because they generally provide the most benefits. It's a little bit risky to have a sole proprietorship because your personal assets can be at stake as well. So that's kind of the direction we go in.
Okay, so what different type of corporations are there in Illinois?
Well, first of all, you're going to have a C corporation, which if you form a corporation in Illinois, a C corp is the automatic one you have. A C corporation becomes a separate taxpayer when you form it, with income expenses going directly to the business. But if corporate profits are paid out to the stockholders of the corporation in dividends, then those stockholders are getting income and they're taxed as well. And we call that double taxation. So sometimes people move from a C corp to a different form to avoid that penalty. And the next step they would go to if they want to avoid that is an S corporation. That's a form where the S corp doesn't actually pay its own taxes, but the income goes to the members and the owners and they pay their own tax returns, and so it avoids double taxation. And then finally you have an LLC, which is a popular choice as well. It stands for a limited liability company. This has the same benefits of not having liability personally and not having your own assets at stake, but it's a little bit easier to run. There's less requirements as far as filing forms, and you don't have double taxation either with that form.
Now, each type you're talking about seems to be structured for a certain purpose. We have about a minute left. What are some of the advantages and limitations of these types which would lead a person to choose a certain type?
Well, you know, when you start out with a sole proprietorship or doing business as they say, or partnership, it's really easy to run because basically you just file some forms with the state and that's it. But you're not having any personal protection. If somebody sues your business, they can go after your own personal assets like your house and stuff like that. So it's generally best for most businesses to have a corporate form established. A C corporation is good for large businesses that need taxation setups and income distribution, and they don't mind having that burdensome form. But S corporations and LLCs are best for small businesses because they can run a little bit leaner and meaner and avoid getting hit twice for taxes.
We have about 15 seconds. Can you talk a little bit about naming a company, what rules for thumb you have?
Well, if you have a corporation, you're supposed to have the word corporation or limited or company in your name. And also you have to check out with the Secretary of State's office to make sure no one else has a unique or a similar name to your name.
Okay.
So that's kind of one of the things you have to avoid.
Okay, well, thanks. I appreciate your time. And
Thank
again,
you.
there are lawyers standing by from the American Law Firm right now to take your free call on any legal matter. When we come back, we'll have a closing statement.
Picture experience. Legal experience in many areas of law. Dedication. Giving full attention to each client and their individual legal needs. Affordability. Offering simple flat fees and payment plans. Now picture the American Law Firm. Call the American Law Firm today at 815-394-1776 for your free consultation.